Hello, welcome to the channel. In this video we spend the final few days of our trip travelling back across the continent from Mendoza, Argentina to Curitiba, Brazil. On leaving Mendoza, we were entertained at the traffic lights by a talented juggler. Unfortunately, we couldn't leave a tip. We headed northeast on Highway 142 before joining Highway 20 to head east towards our destination for the day of Los Hornillos, a small and pretty town at the foot of the Sierras de Cordoba that rise to over 2,800 meters above sea level and are a popular holiday destination in Argentina. It was a long way across dry, flat and unchanging scenery. We found our accommodation next to the main road and had a comfortable night before leaving the next morning to climb 1,100 meters and crest the range at 2,200 meters before descending to the city of Cordoba. We stopped for lunch in Cordoba, then found ourselves on a long stretch of very good 4-lane highway, crossing the flat terrain that took us to Santa Fe and Paraná on the other side of the river. Little did we know that this was the last of the good roads in Argentina. Approaching Santa Fe, I missed the turn to Paraná, which caused 30 to 45 minutes of detours and frustration at the end of the day. Trying to follow the GPS in the general direction of the tunnel under the river, we faced detours due to roadworks and protest demonstrations. Frustrating at the end of a long and tiring day, but eventually we found our hotel and some food and settled in for the night. You may be wondering why I had bungee cords holding down the tank bag. It's a sad story. I ordered a Tusk bag from USA, but it only made it to Sao Paulo before it was either lost or stolen. I had to make a last-minute purchase of a GV tank lock bag and didn't have time to test it. Come the morning of our departure, we found that the lock mechanism was useless. The bag wouldn't even stay locked on the tank with the bike on the side stand. I ended up not taking my mirrorless camera and zoom lens to save weight and had to improvise with the bungees. Even then, the bag came loose occasionally over larger bumps. So we're not impressed with the GV system. Next day was our last day in Argentina as we headed to the border and the Brazilian city of Uruguaiana. The day started out fine and we made good progress, but as we headed east the clouds became more ominous and we rode into heavy rain and thunderstorms. The road was in terrible condition, and combined with the weather, we made slow and very damp progress. Bon planned, we had had enough and turned off to try and find a hotel, but couldn't. So we decided to carry on and ride the last section to the border. The road was appalling. Potholes, puddles and dirt, combined with slow-moving trucks, made for some challenging conditions. We eventually made it to the bridge across the Uruguay River and Uruguayana on the other side. We stopped at the first hotel we found and left border entry until the next day, when we walked back to the control post to re-enter Brazil. We managed to mostly dry out our riding gear and headed off the next morning in light rain. It eventually cleared and we had a dry ride into Passo Fundo. It was on this day we encountered our closest near miss. Overtaking a car, I checked my mirror and indicated at the same time as a Ford Ranger behind us. The asshole in the Ford overtook us 3 abreast with one wheel in the grass and missed us by centimetres. I honestly would have strangled him given the chance. He took off at high speed, but sadly that sort of driving is commonplace in Brazil. Impatience, aggression and incompetence, such a bad mix. You see it every day on Brazilian roads. Driving standards are shite. Little wonder their road toll is appallingly high. Arriving at Paso Fondo, I cleaned all the bags before taking them up to the room as they were absolutely filthy. The last day of the trip was uneventful. We crossed two major rivers, the Uruguay once more and the Iguazu, which tumbles over the famously impressive Iguazu Falls at Foz do Iguaçu before joining the mighty Paraná River. Night was falling as we passed Palmeira and we rode the last part of the journey home in the dark. We stopped at the supermarket for some essentials before the final kilometre of over 8,000 kilometres for the total trip. We had an amazing trip. Northern Argentina is spectacular, and we look forward to sharing our forthcoming trip down to Patagonia with you. in the coming months. Thanks again for watching. Ciao for now.